Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely shift the cybersecurity paradigm you might have in your head. You know, when we hear the word cybersecurity, a lot of us immediately picture that classic Hollywood movie scene, right? A lone genius in a dark hoodie furiously typing green code on a black screen in some dark basement. But today, we're ripping off that bandage. We are moving away from those outdated cinematic myths and staring directly into the highly organized, fiercely industrialized, and, well, stark reality of corporate cybersecurity. The landscape has totally changed, and the way we understand the players, the methods, and our own vulnerabilities, that has to change with it. I want to start us off with this quote right here. It's pulled straight from the Cisco Annual Security Report. A security breach, not if, but when. Seriously, this is our stark wake-up call. We really need to establish a serious, urgent tone right from the top. Because, let's face it, hoping you simply fly under the radar, that's no longer a valid security strategy. Cybercriminals aren't just fringe elements anymore. They're an organized industry, and they're coming for every single sector. So we're going to look at exactly how we prepare for the when. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, the boardroom cybersecurity reality. 2, redefining the threat agent. 3, the threat equation explained. 4, users as unwitting accomplices. And finally, closing the security gap. All right, Section 1. The boardroom cybersecurity reality. Beyond the IT department? So the days of executives tossing security issues over the fence to the IT folks and just washing their hands of it, those days are absolutely over. It's now a critical boardroom imperative. The ripple effects of a cybercrime event strike directly at the core of a business. We aren't just talking about a temporary website outage here. We're looking at the theft of intellectual property. Patents, trade secrets, literally everything that makes a company competitive. We're looking at devastating reputational damage that just destroys customer trust, fraud, massive legal exposure from lawsuits, and long-term financial losses. Because a breach damages the bottom line so severely, managing this risk is now a direct fiduciary responsibility for the board of directors. They have to protect the shareholders, and that means protecting the data. To put a really fine point on that, check out this stat from ISACA. 55% of corporate directors must now personally understand and manage cybersecurity as a risk area. Think about that. More than half of corporate directors are now personally on the hook to understand these threats. It is fundamentally reshaping corporate governance.
Moving on to Section 2, redefining the threat agent, breaking the myths.
Now, to defend a system, we obviously have to understand the attacker. So let's start by demystifying a word we hear literally all the time: hacker. A hacker is a person interested in the arcane workings of computing systems who constantly seeks knowledge and will never intentionally disrupt data. That's right, actually scratch the Hollywood image. By pure definition, a hacker is curious, they follow cyber ethics, and they genuinely do not intend harm. They just want to know how things work behind the scenes. Now, contrast that with a cracker. A cracker is a person who violates system integrity with malicious intent. They enjoy the abuse, they want the temporary power, and they want to cause damage or leave a signature behind. They are the truly hostile, malicious actors. Understanding this clear definitional contrast is absolutely crucial because it tells us that intention matters just as much as technical skill. But crackers aren't the only ones out there, not by a long shot. The real threat ecosystem is incredibly diverse and highly industrialized. We're dealing with nation-states conducting espionage or targeting infrastructure. We're dealing with organized crime syndicates that operate exactly like modern corporations. We face threats from corporate competitors. And surprisingly, the threat agent isn't even always human. We're fighting automated AI-based malware that acts as its own autonomous threat agent. And yes, no way around it, even Mother Nature, floods, fires, earthquakes, acting as a threat agent to suddenly and decisively destroy your infrastructure. Which brings us to Section 3, the threat equation explained, the how and why. Now that we know exactly who we're up against, we need a core conceptual framework. So the crucial point is this bold equation right here. Threat equals a function of motivation, capability, opportunity, and impact. I want this equation literally seared into your memory because if you understand this, you understand the fundamental mechanics of every single cyber incident in existence. Let's briefly step through each variable. First up, motivation. Why attack? Is it for financial gain, revenge, religion, or power? Second, capability. Can they attack? Do they actually have the skills, the tools, and the resources? Third, opportunity. Can they access the system? Is there a vulnerability? And fourth, Impact. What is the resulting damage? The absolute most important takeaway here is this. If there is no opportunity, meaning if you have removed the vulnerability, there is no threat. You break the equation. Simple as that. And this brilliantly illustrates how it all comes together. If we map this out as a 3D matrix, like the University of Glamorgan research team did, we have threat agents on one axis, vulnerabilities on another, and attributes like motivation, opportunity, and capability on the vertical axis. For a threat to actually qualify for your serious attention, it has to exist in all three layers of that third dimension. The attacker needs the motive, the tools, and the open window. Your job as a defender? It's to make sure that open window, that opportunity, simply doesn't exist. All right, Section 4. Users as unwitting accomplices, the internal threat. Let's pivot to that very concept of opportunity for a second. I'm going to pose this directly to you. Who is creating the opportunity for these attackers? You might think it's a flaw in some obscure server code somewhere, but it's actually a Trojan horse scenario. Almost 50% of incidents involve insiders. The real danger is very often inside the building, sitting right at a desk. Get this. By the year 2020, it was expected that 50 billion connected Internet of Things, or IoT, devices would exist. 50 billion. Every single time an employee connects a personal device to the corporate cloud, the attack surface expands. The boundary of what an organization has to defend is exploding outward, and it's largely driven by internal user behavior. And here is exactly how those users turn into unwitting accomplices. It's rarely malicious, right? It's just everyday errors of omission. It's an employee failing to update their web browser. It's clicking on a seemingly benign spam email that steals credentials. Downloading a PDF tool from an untrusted site, or trusting maladvertising, those fake ads that silently drop malicious software onto a machine. While the IT department is busy blocking sophisticated external threats, regular employees are accidentally just handing over the keys to the front door. Finally, Section 5, closing the security gap, executive alignment. So we know the reality, we know the attackers, and we know our own internal weaknesses. Now, let's focus on the resolution. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this massive disconnect within the very teams tasked with protecting us. According to the Cisco report, 59% of chief information security officers strongly agree their security processes are clear and optimized. But when you ask the security operations managers, the SecOps folks actually on the front line fighting the daily battles, only 46% agree. That is a dangerous gap. When optimistic executives are disconnected from the frontline reality, resources get misallocated and vulnerabilities just slip right through the cracks. So how do we fix it? Here are your actionable boardroom takeaways. First, create a comprehensive cyber risk profile as part of your overall organizational risk assessment. Second, the board absolutely must ask tough questions. What controls are in place, and how quickly can we detect a compromise? Third, you have to align the perspectives of your CSOs and your SecOps managers so everyone is fighting the same exact war. And fourth, educate your users. Don't just install stricter controls that they're going to try to work around anyway. Teach them how to be your first line of defense. Which leaves us with this final, lingering question for every business leader watching this explainer. Look at your own organization. Are your users currently unwitting enablers of cybercrime, or have you trained them to be empowered security assets? The answer to that question might just be the absolute difference between a secure future and a catastrophic breach. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this vital shift in the cybersecurity paradigm. Keep asking those tough questions.